Hello, 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 and welcome to another Fibrenew podcast. This edition is a podcast takeover and an interview that originally aired on the Best of the Best in Franchising podcast series. Host James Butler talks with Fibrenew Franchisee Mike Nonelle about a whole bunch of things, including his transition into franchise ownership, what he's learned along the way. They discuss the culture here at Fibrenew, how Mike runs his business, and what the future holds down the road. It's a fantastic conversation, and we hope you enjoy listening in. Thanks to James Butler and to Mike Nonelle for your words and thoughts in this episode. Cheers.
Welcome to this episode of the Best in Franchising. Today we're privileged to talk with Mike Nonelle in Hollywood, Florida. He owns a Fibrenew franchise and began back in March of 2020. It's an absolute honor for us to have him on the podcast today. So, Mike, thanks so much for being here today. We really appreciate it.
James, thank you. Thank you. Great to be here.
Well, tell us about your background. I know we were chatting, you have some background in franchising, but what was it that drew you to Fibrenew specifically, and why did you choose to join the Fibrenew franchise?
Sure. I spent close to 30 years in the film and TV industry. And when it was time to hang up my cleats with that business, I was too young to retire. I didn't want to stop working. I knew I wanted to own a business, and I knew about the strengths and the power of franchising. So my natural inclination was to start the discovery process and finding the right franchise. What led me to Fibrenew, I started by doing what I think a lot of maybe your listeners and viewers do, which is some self-introspection, finding out what I liked, what I didn't like, and then making that list of businesses. I started by finding out what I didn't want in a franchise. I knew I didn't want a retail location. I didn't want to sign a lease initially. So I didn't want a restaurant or a spa or a gym. But if the concept allowed me to grow into that down the road, that would be a plus. And I also knew that I didn't want a lot of employees to start. If I could start the business by myself, that was terrific. But again, knowing that I could add bodies as needed, that was a big plus. So immediately I dismissed a lot of possibilities. And then I had that core group that I started discovering, and Fibrenew was not at the top of the list. I didn't know anything about leather or vinyl repairs. I kind of thought, what is this business? And it just kind of hung in there. And as I moved forward, it just hung around and hung around. And then once I started looking at the numbers, doing the validation calls, it quickly became apparent that it was something that I could be successful in. There was a lot of market potential. Low startup costs, low overhead, all the things that I was looking for. And that's what brought me to it. The ride-along day, which is where you spend the day with a franchisee, that's what really sealed the deal for me.
Did you do that in Florida, or where did you actually do your ride-along day at?
I did. I went over to the west coast of Florida and got there the night before, woke up early, met the owner, jumped in his truck, and we spent the whole day together. Now, it's one thing to spend 30 or 40 minutes on the phone doing your validation calls, talking to somebody about a business. But when you can fully immerse yourself in that concept for a whole day, we met customers, we did repairs, we did estimates. I participated in a couple of the repairs. But the best part was spending the whole day with that owner. Any question you could think of, revenue, how'd you find the customer? How'd you establish billing protocols? What systems do you have in place to run your business? All those things that maybe you forget about when you hang up the phone in your validation call and go, wish I would ask him that. All those questions were answered. And by the end of the day, whether or not it's the business for you. For some people, they go, you know what? Not for me, which is fine. You don't want to buy that business if it's not the right one. For me, I couldn't wait to get started.
Well, tell us about what your business is today. I mean, for maybe someone who's listening to this doesn't know what Fibrenew is or hasn't heard as much about the Fibrenew opportunity, how would you describe it, number one? And then maybe you could talk about what you specifically do in the business.
Fibrenew is the world's largest mobile leather, vinyl, and plastic repair and restoration business. We are a mobile business that goes to customers. We do all our repairs on site. We do not operate out of a shop or a central location. And we go where those materials are. Now, if you drive down the street and you look around and you think, where is there leather, vinyl, and plastic? It's everywhere. We go into people's homes. We do residential work. We work in the automotive industry, the marine industry, aviation, restaurants, doctors' offices, anywhere where those materials are. Customers are everywhere. We're not an upholstery business. We do not replace material. We repair and restore existing materials. That's typically about 40 to 50% of the cost of replacement. So it's much cheaper for the customer. It's also much faster. And it's also the added benefit of keeping a lot of things out of landfills. Instead of chucking your sofa in the landfill, we can repair it. You can get several more years out of it. You can continue enjoying it and save a lot of money in the process.
What does an average day look like for you? What are you typically doing mostly? Do you marketing in the morning, go out and meet with clients in the afternoon or evenings? What's your average day look like?
Yeah, I typically do admin at the end of the day. I schedule my first repair for normally 9 o'clock. I do live in South Florida, which can involve traffic and heat. So in the summertime, when the ambient temperature can be 115 degrees, you probably don't want to be out in a parking lot fixing a car at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I schedule things according to when I can get there efficiently, either going a little bit earlier, a little bit later. And then as I work through the day, I transition into sales, admin, and at the end of the day is kind of wrapping up, cleaning up your gear, getting ready for the next day, and just sort of putting out any little fires or things that happen to build up during the day. I basically run the business by myself. My wife is a nurse practitioner. She has her own career. So I'm your kind of typical owner, although I do have a technician, which I brought on, and I do have someone that helps me with Google AdWords and social media posting and that sort of thing. But for the most part, I'm doing repairs early and then tackling sales and marketing and admin at the back end of the day.
Well, you're getting ready to start into your 5th year of being a member of the Fibrenew family. Tell us about what you like most about Fibrenew and why that opportunity looks so attractive to you when you first started, and maybe what your experience has been since you started as well.
When I first learned about the business, I didn't know anything about leather or vinyl or plastic repair. I was not somebody that had that in their background. I knew nothing about it. I'd never hired anybody to do that kind of work. I really didn't know anything about it or that it even existed or that you could do that. The thing that really stuck out early on were the verticals, as I mentioned, marine, automotive, residential. And I thought, are there really customers out there that are going to pay me to go to their house and fix their sofa or their car? As it turns out, there's a lot of them. So early on, it was the lure of having a lot of customers. But again, I didn't have to have a shop. I didn't have to hire anybody, but I could grow into that. Also, the margins were very attractive. As an owner operator, you can expect to see probably north of 70% margins. So I felt that I could get things going pretty quickly. I like working with my hands. That's something that you need to do in this business. You can't be colorblind. We work with color every day. So we do administer a color blindness test to prospective owners. But it was several different things that all culminated and really drew me to the business.
So how does your business break down? Do you do mostly residential? You do some marine? Do you have a mix of that, or is it across the board? Is it mostly residential type work that you're doing?
Everyone's got furniture. So residential is certainly a big part of it, and most people have a car. These days, the drivers in those two markets, which are our two largest categories, cars and furniture are really expensive if you can find them. So what we have found, because of what has happened during the pandemic, people are hanging on to things a lot longer. They're keeping their car, they're fixing it up, they're not looking for a new car, they're buying a used car and they want to touch it up and make it look new. And the same with furniture. They're keeping the old sofa. They're maybe adding some new foam to it, but they're hanging on to things longer. So that's a big driver of business. Obviously, in Florida, there's a lot of boats down here. I just spent about 5 days on a 230-foot yacht here in Fort Lauderdale. Boating people are not afraid to spend money on their boats. So again, customers are everywhere, but for us, the big three are residential, automotive, and marine. And kind of the other categories fill us in. We get calls from restaurants and doctors' offices all the time.
Sure. Well, tell us about the reputation of Fibrenew, because I think that's a question that people would have who are thinking about your business specifically is, why would they call you as opposed to somebody else? What really stands out in your mind or the customer's mind about Fibrenew specifically, about why they would call you to have you come do this repair work or this restoration work for them?
Well, Fibrenew's been around for almost 40 years. We did not invent leather and plastic and vinyl repairs and restoration. But what we did do is build the systems and the training to make it accessible to people like myself that wanted to build a business around that. The thing about Fibrenew is not only how long we've been around, but the quality of repairs. I get calls frequently from people that say, I called a guy, he showed up in a white van and he fixed it and all the color rubbed off or it fell apart. So what we do is make things not only look good, but last a long time. And that didn't just happen overnight. It's the product of years and years of constant evolution in the training and the products. Fibrenew has a chemical engineer on staff at the corporate office. He goes into his office every day that looks like a lab, and he figures out ways to make our existing products better and also to come up with new products that allow us to work on things that other people can't. You've heard of the vegan leather that's in Teslas. It's not really leather. It's something other. It didn't come from a vegan cow. But there are these exotic materials that are coming out now, specifically in, I would say, the automotive and marine industry, that are not vinyl, that are not leather. They're an other category. They're extremely difficult to work on. If you don't know what you're doing, forget about it. You can't do those repairs. Because of how Fibrenew operates in our evolution, we can fix those things. Other people can't do that. So it's not only the reputation, how long we've been around. People know us. With over 300 locations, there's probably one right there in their backyard. But we market very well. If you type in leather repair and there's someone in your area, you're probably going to see them on the first page. But at the end of the day, it's about the quality of the work and how good we make things look and how long it lasts.
Absolutely. You mentioned training, and you go up there for training and things like that. I would imagine it's a pretty involved process because matching colors and getting things exactly right. Talk about that training process that Fibrenew provides a little bit and how beneficial that was for you specifically to help you launch your business.
Sure. I knew that if the training didn't work, my business was not going to work. If I didn't know what I was doing, I was going to go out of business pretty quickly. So in talking to other owners during the validation process, I asked that very question. Most people that come into this business have no background in leather, vinyl, plastic repair. We all do something else. So the training is absolutely critical in getting your business started and keeping you successful. When I started the business, training was done in person in Calgary. This was before the pandemic. You flew up there, you spent 2 weeks in a training facility all day long for 2 weeks. Incredibly immersive. It was the proverbial drinking from a fire hose for someone that had never tried to fix leather before. So the training is incredibly intensive. It's very thorough. It's one-on-one. It's personal. Some of it is done now via Zoom calls like we're doing, but a lot of it is still now done in person. Fibrenew repairs are like building a Lego structure. Each repair is a little bit different, but you utilize building blocks to perform a successful repair. So what the training does is educate you about those individual blocks. Here's what this product is. Here's what it does. Here's this technique. Here's how you perfect it. And then what you do is you plug those things together to perform your repair and make it happen. But the training, not only initially, but ongoing, is world-class. We have a extremely vibrant, I'll call it a bulletin board. It's a site where all the owners get together and exchange information, problems, solutions. So you have owners from 300 plus different locations, all contributing to the wealth of knowledge that's there, and that's what makes us successful.
Talk about business training as well, because not only do you have to learn how to do the mechanics of the business, but also marketing and how to do the operations of the business and things like that. What kind of support did Fibrenew offer to you when you first initially started and also ongoing that's helped you really grow and scale your business?
Well, because they've been doing it for so long, they have a very mature set of steps in place when you first get to your point where you're signing the check and sending it off, and then the following weeks leading up to your training and your grand opening. So it's difficult early on with any business, with any franchise, to know what to pay attention to and what not to. You may be stressing over your vehicle wrap, my territory, all these things. Because they've been doing it for so long, they can say, let's worry about that next week. Let's focus on this right now. So it's a very calming influence knowing that there's people that have been doing it for decades and leading you step by baby step through the process. Fibrenew was not the first business that I had owned, but it was the first franchise that I owned. you should buy a franchise because of the systems. That's why you're buying a franchise. If you're not going to follow the system, don't buy the business. So following those steps was, I knew, very important. And the fact that they knew exactly what I needed to know before I needed to know that, it was not only critical, but it was very calming. And it just let me know that there were people in my corner helping me out. And they continue to do that today. I don't lift a finger to maintain my website. If you don't have a really good looking website these days, you don't have a business. That's your storefront, regardless of if you have a store or not. People are going to your website. So they maintain that completely. I do nothing to maintain my website. So that's the part of the marketing side of the business that I really don't have to think about. And again, the power of a franchise, having a system and corporate in place that can do those things, that takes a bunch off your plate every day.
Well, talk about numbers a little bit. When you first got started, how long did it take you before you actually were able to make return on investment or become profitable in your business? And then maybe we can talk about what your revenues were last year and what you kind of see your business becoming the next few years as well.
Yeah, my startup experience was not good because, as we were talking about before we started, I was literally in Calgary in training when the pandemic hit in March of 2020. We had to actually leave training a couple days early because the borders were shutting down, flights were canceling. The world was coming to a screeching halt. I could not have picked a worse time to start my business. So I got home, and instead of being able to do all the things you're supposed to do with a new business, going out, introducing yourself, knocking on doors, businesses were closed. Customers didn't want you in their homes. It was a scary time. But despite that, the phone still rang. People still called me. They still needed work to be done. They still needed the services that I was providing. We had to go about it a little bit differently. Maybe they'd leave the keys to the car outside, and I'd work on it and then lock it up. Or if they had a chair, they'd put it in the backyard, and I'd go back there because they didn't want me in their house. But despite that, I still went cash flow positive in my second month. And by the end of the first year, I had a profitable business despite everything that was going on. As far as numbers go, early on, the goal for me was to achieve let me back up. We normally look at our numbers on a daily basis because you may have a repair that lasts all day. It's one job, or you may have 6 or 8 smaller jobs. So I look at it from a perspective of daily revenue. Early on, my goal was to hit $500. If I could just bill $500 a day, I was going to be happy. That number has roughly doubled since then. The first year was kind of a wash because of the pandemic. But the numbers now for me personally is to hit that $1,000 a day mark. Some days we go over. We do a big job that's maybe twice that. Some days we don't quite hit it. But for revenue numbers, that's our daily goal. And wherever that leads us to at the end of that week and month is where we end up. But it's that magic $1,000 a day number that we look for.
What percentage of that's your net margin that you get to keep? Because you said it's a fairly high number with Fibrenew than it is with other franchises for sure. But what did you say that number was for you? Or maybe you can even talk about that a bit more specifically.
Yeah, it's still up close to, I would say, 60 to 70%. I have brought on a technician who I pay on a commission basis. So the labor cost for that individual, obviously the margins for him are much, much, much lower. But when I'm doing a job, I'm still in that high 60 to 70% number. The materials, just there's not that much sunk cost in your kit. Once you are started up and running and you have your gear, the cost of materials per job is just not that high. The cost of me finding a customer these days is also not that high. A lot of repeat business, a lot of word of mouth business. I do advertise Google and AdWords and things. So there is some money spent there, but it's not a big number. It's just not that big. As I get my technician ramped up and get him busier, obviously those numbers will look different for him.
And what do you see your business becoming the next couple of years as well, over the next year or two, as you continue to grow the business? You've been doing this for 4 years. You're getting going to your 5th year. But what do you see your business becoming in the time to come?
Well, the goal for the remainder of this year is to max out the technician. I wouldn't say I'm going to ultimately get away from getting out and doing repairs. It's something I enjoy doing, but I want to get him as busy as possible. Once I reach that point, you can make the decision to level off there, find another technician and start ratcheting up. So I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. But for the remainder of this year, it's about getting him busy, getting him fully booked, and then analyzing the next steps. I still don't feel like I need to have a retail location. There are some Fibrenew owners that have opened a shop and people can come in and drop off things, or they have a place they go to. They take things from customers' homes and work on them there. That's not me. That's not the business I want. I still enjoy just going and doing it on site, getting in, getting out, getting the check and moving on to the next one. So I don't feel the need for a retail location, but getting the technician at this point fully involved is the next big step.
But you personally are pretty much fully booked, it sounds like. And then eventually you're going to have technicians kind of take over your role and you'll be more doing operational things within the business. Correct. Or do you plan on opening a second location or something like that down the road as well?
It's not in the cards right now.
Okay.
Talk to me in a year. I may change my tune. Fibrenew agreements as they stand now are for 5 years. So I have 1 year before I need to decide if I'm going to renew. Probably will do that. But I have found that for me personally, I'm more of the tortoise than the hare. I have grown the business incrementally. I'm not one to rush into things and make snap judgments. So I will see where the tides of business take me once the technician situation is flushed out. But as it stands now, I'm perfectly happy with the current location.
Sure. And I think the thing that's really great about your business model specifically is it really offers you a lot of freedom about how you grow your business and set things up. And you spent time on a yacht for a few days, you get to do some really fun things and travel and get to meet a lot of really interesting people. And I would imagine that sometimes you might have a full day, sometimes you might have half a day, but it really gives you a lot of flexibility, I think, to be able to spend time with your family or do whatever you want to do besides that. Would you agree with that sentiment as well? There's a lot of lifestyle benefits you get for being a part of this franchise as well?
1,000%. 1,000%. As a business owner, when people call me for validation calls, sometimes the question that I get asked is, how much time do you really have to put into the business? How much do you work? And you probably know this from your background. A business owner will tell you they're always working. I'm always working. I'm always thinking about the business. I never stop weekends. To some extent, that's true. If I'm having coffee with my wife on a Saturday morning, my mind may drift to what's coming up the next week. But the return that you get from having complete control of your day and your life, it's different than being an employee. As an employee, you're working for somebody else. You're making someone else's business better. You're making someone else richer. You're getting a paycheck. You're trading time for paycheck. So it's a different thought process. The more I work, the more I build my business, and it feels good. So to your point, if I decide, hey, Friday, I want to take the afternoon off and go down to Hollywood Beach and have a margarita, sure, I can do that. And having that control is, it's everything. If I want to get a raise, I just work harder. I don't have to go in and ask somebody for more money. I just book more jobs. So that control it's everything.
Right. And especially coming from the film industry, I would imagine you don't have much control of when you're going to work. And when you do, you have long terms, but when you don't work at all, and then you have times where you're working that crazy. And so the flexibility with that is probably pretty amazing for you compared to what you were doing before joining Fibrenew.
Well, we became an extension of the computer. And computers, as you know, you can work them all day, all night. You can work them till 5 a.m. and then, hey, let's keep working. So we were certainly victims of that. We made TV commercials and we did special effects and graphics and things for films and that sort of thing. But there was no control. Sometimes we're operating on California time. Sometimes we're operating on Europe time. But that control element, forget about it. That doesn't exist in that industry.
Well, I appreciate you kind of giving a little bit of an insight into your numbers and how you've been growing. Congratulations on your success. I know that's a big part of it too, is sometimes people want to be able to have more lifestyle control over their business. And that's a lot of times even more important than a certain amount of revenue. And you have great profitability too. And so it's exciting to be able to grow your business and get your initial investment back and continue to grow your business over time as well. So that's exciting to hear about as you've been growing your business and doing that as well.
Yeah.
Talk about time commitment. You mentioned that briefly, but from when you started the business initially to what you're doing now, has your time shifted or changed? Or is it about the same? Is it more? Obviously, you started to hire some people and have people come on. What is that like for you personally?
The amount of time is about the same, but what I'm doing during that time has changed significantly. Early on, because you don't know really what you're doing. You've been trained, but it's not second nature. You spend all your free time doing repairs, practicing, relearning in your mind what you learned during training, fixing friends' things. I don't practice anymore. So the time that I would have spent doing that is now spent doing other things for the business. But I commit, I would say, probably 60, 65 hours a week to the business. But it's different than it was 2 years ago, just because things are now, I don't have to think about them anymore. And I can mentally think about things like marketing or advertising or getting that new customer. I'm not worried about, oh my gosh, I got this repair coming up on Monday. How am I going to do it? I got to watch a video, refresh my memory. So the amount of time is about the same, but what I'm doing during those hours is different now.
Sure. What do you think is the most interesting job you've ever done, or most rewarding job of something you did where it was really fun and you learned a lot from doing it?
Well, the boat I'm currently on at 230 feet is the largest yacht I have been on, a couple 130 or 40 footers, but this is a pretty big one. It's interesting that you bring that up. One of the things that they don't talk about, and by they, I mean other owners, early in the discovery process is the different places that you go when you own this business. If you buy a yoga salon, you're in there and people are going in and doing yoga every day. That's your day. Because of what we do, and also because of the relationships that we have with existing vendors. When you buy the business, there's already existing accounts that you have. We go to places that I certainly would have never been on a 230-foot yacht were it not for Fibrenew. I have been in some of the most expensive and exclusive properties in Miami and Florida, airplanes, Gulf Streams, boats, places that you would not normally go. This business takes you there. And it's exciting. It was something I didn't really consider early on or think about, but it's definitely a bonus when you look at the coming workday and you realize, oh, I get to be in a Gulf Stream for 5 hours tomorrow. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, going back to what you were saying before about training and support, like when you come across the new material, like you were mentioning the Tesla or things like that, I would imagine that's a little bit intimidating probably when you first go out there for the first time to do a job like that. You're working on $1 million plane or multi-million-dollar boat or yacht or something like that. How do you overcome some of those nerves initially to just do the work and do it well and be happy with the result at the end? I'm sure the clients are happy, maybe watching you and seeing what you're doing too. But how do you
overcome right over your shoulder, right here?
You're like, don't mess that up, right? So I was just curious, how do you personally dealt with that? And is that something you worried about when you first got started, and it really wasn't that big of a concern because of the training support you got from Fibrenew, or what was that like specifically?
Yeah, you fall back on your training. It's kind of like the military, or in sports, you're as good as your practice schedule and your training schedule. So if I'm in a situation where it's a $50,000 sofa I'm working on and I'm doing a repair, at the end of the day, it's leather. I'm repairing it. What have you learned? What is the training? What is the background, the products? So knowing that I know how to do the work and I have the products with me that are the best ones out there that are going to let me do the work, I can relax and just focus on getting the job done. If I do run across situations, as you mentioned, with some new material like a Tesla, where you kind of go, that looks a little different than I'm used to. That's where you fall back on the other owners. That's where you reach out into the Fibrenew system and say, hey, folks, anybody else run across this? Guaranteed somebody has. So
that's cool.
It's the training, it's the products, and the support structure. Again, why you buy a business, the systems that are there, that's a very calming influence. Doesn't completely get the nerves out of the equation, but to a large part it does.
Yeah, but I think also once we get to meet those people and know them, and you do a good job for them, they're going to be great referral partners. They're going to be great people to come and ask you to do other work for them and things like that too, which is really fun as well.
For sure. Yeah. People, I never know what customers have in their mind, what they're expecting things to look like. But time and time again, hey, Mr. Customer, come on over. I'm finished. Wow. That's what I hear more often than, wow, look at that. Oh my gosh. I should probably start recording some of these reactions, but I never know what the customer's thinking. I know what I'm thinking, which is, make it look like it never happened. But I
Right.
never really know what's in their mind. They're probably expecting something much different. So having that feedback, and to your point, wow, I got to tell my friend Susan about this, or, oh, the owner of the boat is going to want to know about you, or, oh, I have a car that you need. There's this viral aspect to what we do. Probably 25 or 30% of the work I do leads to another job with that same customer or same business.
That's
So
awesome.
the longer you're in business, the more it just kind of this chain develops. And as long as you keep doing the good work, which is easy to do because of the training and the products, you can stay busy as you want.
Yeah, I love that. And to your point, you can do it as much as you want to, but you can really kind of build your life around an exciting business that you can go meet a lot of really fascinating people, be in
That's
really
right.
fascinating places, and that's really awesome as well.
Yeah, yeah. You're hitting the nail right on the head.
You're getting ready to come up on your fifth year here, and you were talking about renewing and stuff like that. A lot of times when I talk with people about franchising, I always ask them the question: if you could go back in time and choose to do this decision again and join this franchise, would you or would you not, and why? And maybe you could just answer that a little bit about what you've loved most about Fibrenew and what surprised you most about it when you joined the franchise as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I would do it again. I would change the timing, of course, as I mentioned, because of
Sure.
the startup struggles. Not something I had control over, but what surprised me the most about it was the amount of work that's out there. One of the top three questions people ask me when they call for validation calls is, how do you get the business? Are customers out there? Because they were like me. Is people really
Yeah.
going to pay me to come and fix their car seat or their steering wheel? Business is everywhere. You can be as busy as you want to be. What I tend to do with my business is run it as a white collar customer service business. And but what I mean by that is, because I know that I can do the repairs, because I know they're going to turn out great, people are going to be happy, I'm going to get that wow reaction. Doing the work is almost an afterthought. So what I really focus on is the customer experience. I surprise people by, believe it or not, calling them back, returning their emails, showing up on time. Unfortunately, customers expect to be disappointed in those areas. They expect you to maybe not call them back. I'll be there at 9. They expect you to show up at 9:30. People are always saying, wow, thanks for calling me back. Thanks for responding to me. So because I do that, I can charge a premium for the repairs because I immediately established myself as someone different other than the guy with the white van with Kansas spray paint in the back of it. So they're willing to pay a premium for what we do because of how I have connected with them and established the relationship. So by the time they've hired me and I've done the work, it's almost an afterthought. So that's been a big component in how I've structured and run the business, was just treating it that way.
Yeah. You mentioned the interaction with the other franchisees. Fibrenew has over 300 locations now across the country, in Canada and the United States. And just what has that experience been like from you go to convention or you get to meet the other franchisees? How helpful and collaborative have they been in helping you out to really scale and grow your business?
Yeah, I wouldn't be where I am today without the help of the owner just north of me in Boca Raton. His name's Kevin Fontaine. He had been in the business for over 10 years when I started. So the ability to pick up the phone and call somebody and ask them a question, you can certainly post it on the message board and get a response. But the immediacy of calling someone up or saying, hey, I've got something going on, can you help me? Can you show me how? Can you come on down? It's critical. Again, it's one of the reasons you look at a franchise is because of all the other people that have the same business you do. When you get together at convention, you start meeting a bunch of like-minded people that are not clones of yourself, because everybody has different ways that they organize and run their businesses. But everyone has been through what you've been through. The knowledge base is pretty much the same. And there's just a big willingness to help and make everyone's business better. But having that person next door to you, you're not in competition with them. You may have the same wrap on your vehicle, but you are partners in building that brand. So any marketing that he had done in my territory once I took over the business, people know, oh yeah, Fibrenew, you guys are in Fort Lauderdale, you're in Hollywood. Well, we weren't, but we are now. So it's very much a collaborative effort, and it was critical to me getting off the ground, especially in the COVID environment.
Well, and to your point, we we're talking about earlier, if you've never dealt with a particular fabric or a different kind of leather or something like that, having someone who's done that before and coming down and helping you out with that is, I would imagine, invaluable as well, because you have someone who knows what they're doing and can kind of guide you for that first time you're doing that job or that kind of job or that kind of material.
Oh, without question. Well. Without question. Yeah. Yeah. We, part of the startup kit that you have with Fibrenew is what's called a color eye. Color matching is one of the most critical components of a good repair. You can make the structure underneath look perfect, but if your color doesn't match, the repair is no good. Right. So what Fibrenew has is it's a small device that looks at the color, analyzes it, and gives you the formula for that color. So when you leave training, you've already got a big head start in being able to go into the field that very next day and mix a color, match it, do a good repair. What I learned, what I was told from Kevin, the gentleman right up the street, was the color eye is awesome, but if you want to get fast, and fast means more revenue because you get in and out faster, just learn how to mix by eye. So for the first year or so, I did use the color eye, but I also transitioned to learning how to mix and eye match color, which is what I do now. I do use the color eye for certain things, but it's a valuable technology that gets you started really quick. But for people that have been kind of in the business for a while, we tend to start mixing by eye because it is a little bit faster. But having that technology to get off the ground is, it's an incredibly valuable tool.
Absolutely. We'll talk about the leadership of Fibrenew a little bit with Jesse Johnstone and his team there. How supportive have they and the other corporate team members been helping you build your business as well?
Man, those guys, Jesse, if you're watching, hats off to you and the team. I mentioned earlier the chemist that we have on staff, a gentleman, his name is Len. That's just part of the support team in the equation. There are people at the corporate office that were Fibrenew owners and are still Fibrenew owners 20 plus years that are still owning and running a business that are available constantly to help with questions, but also to kind of look down the road at what's coming up and what are we going to need before we know we need it, like being able to fix things like vegan leather. So the support staff is not only there for the technical part of it, but as I mentioned, they maintain the website. I don't have to do anything about that. Funneling Google reviews to the website, keeping pictures up to date. So it's an invisible entity that is constantly there, that it's there, that you don't have to think about. But there's never a moment where myself or anybody that I know of ever goes, man, those guys at corporate, they're dropping the ball. Why didn't they XYZ? That it just doesn't happen in this business. I know it does in some of the other ones, but the support that we get on a day-to-day basis is world-class for sure.
Fantastic. Well, it's been fun to talk with you today, Mike. I really appreciate your insights and your experiences. Congratulations on your success and being a part of the best in franchising. It's been fun to hear of your stories and your success, and I look forward to hearing more about that in the months and years ahead. So, especially talking about Fibrenew, I think Fibrenew is such an exciting brand. There's so many great things happening within them. I think Jesse and his leadership team, they're growing it and making things happen in extraordinary ways as well. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share your experiences. Just in conclusion, what advice would you give to someone who's considering joining the Fibrenew family about why this could be an exciting and the best business for them to start?
You can't turn on a business program, Bloomberg or Fox Business, or pick up any business-related magazine or TV show these days without hearing about AI. Technology is going to take over the world. It's going to put people out of business. AI will never fix someone's sofa. AI will never show up and repair a car seat. There's always going to be a need for what we do in this business. You can't outsource it. Technology can never replace it. So the craftsmanship element of what we do, this hands-on, I'm coming to your location, I'm fixing something that you have, I'm making it better, I'm making you happier, I'm saving you money. There's always going to be a value in that, despite what may happen at Google or Meta or any other place. So people that are considering looking at Fibrenew, I would say look long and hard at where you are, whether you're a current business owner or thinking about another franchise system, and realize that what we do is always going to be there, and we're always going to do it at a high level, and people are always going to have a need for this business. So it was something that I considered early on, and it has really played out in spades for me, and it's something to consider.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again for taking the time to share your experiences and your story about your affiliation with Fibrenew and being a part of their franchise family. And we really appreciate your time and your insights here today. So thank you so much.
Thank you, James. It's been a pleasure.
To learn more about Fibrenew franchising, please visit our website at fibrenew.com/franchising. If you've been itching for a new favorite podcast, look no further than the Fibrenew Exchange on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also hear more interviews and watch videos on the Fibrenew YouTube channel. Just search for Fibrenew to find us. My name is Jesse Johnstone. Thank you again for listening to this episode. Until next time, take good care. Cheers.